You're listening to the Nacho Kids podcast, where we discuss all things step-family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Hey!
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
You too. So today we have Summer Butler, the one and the only. And I wanted you on here because number one, I love you. But number two, you have this amazing thing coming out that we need to talk about.
I would love that.
All right, let's talk about it.
Okay, let's go. It's just come out, but it's been about a month or two, I think. I lose track because I feel like book launches are so heavy and exhausting. But yeah, so this new one, Navigating Life Between Two Homes, is written really for the preteen audience. So I don't know. I've worked with kids as young as 7, 8 years old that have benefited from this. And really, it was kind of born out of necessity. I was seeing a lot of young kids in my coaching that were navigating life between two homes and trying to figure out how to communicate with both homes. You know, what their role looks like in this new blended family, how to deal with loyalty conflicts, how to talk about big emotions. And in reality, I had 1 or 2 families that came to me looking for help that the other home was not willing to consent for. And so the kiddos then were missing out on some help, some coaching that they needed.
Right.
And I thought to myself, why not create a resource that consent isn't needed, right? Like any home could use this book and work through with the children the topics that we cover. So it's kind of born out of necessity through my coaching practice, but also because I had seen some challenges with parents wanting help for their kids. Like they needed to work through some of the struggles of blending and the other home wouldn't consent. So the only person that really loses there is the kids. And I thought, well, why not just make this available to everybody so that no matter which home is wanting help or willing to get help or needing help or just wanting a way to connect. Yeah.
And that's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times being a step family coaches, we know that the step parents and even the bio parents don't see what these step kids are going through.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to admit, when we were in the middle of our, downfall, it was, I didn't care what they were going through.
Right.
And I know that sounds horrible. I know.
No, I get it.
But I was so consumed with my own hurt and my own pain that I'm thinking they're kids.
Right.
All they do is bounce back and forth. No big deal. Kind of thing. No different than staying here one night at mama's the next.
Right.
It is a big deal.
It
Especially a lot of the things that we don't know that these kids are going through. For instance, if the bio parent at the other house is talking about the step parent, things like that.
Yeah.
So it really gets hard for these kids and they don't know how to navigate it because even as adults, we can't tell them how to navigate it.
Right. Well, and I, just from a minimalist approach, right? Like if you say you do find yourself in the most pain, right? You're already blended. You're trying to figure this out. We both know that that's hard. We kind of have to hit rock bottom to bounce up and figure out how to do it the right way. Mm-hmm. But even if you're in that space, like maybe you've got some listeners that are in that space, like, dude, I'm overwhelmed. I'm already drowning. I don't know how to throw this kid a life vest, a life ring. This is that. This is a way for them to feel seen, known, and heard. And so that they simply do not feel left alone in this like crazy ocean they're trying to navigate. And, just from that approach, like even if you don't even know what to do or say, or you're so consumed with the chaos of your own blended family, this is a resource for kids that you can just buy it, give it to them. You don't even have to do it with them.
Right.
But if you want to do the next step or the next right step, even as a step parent, I mean, this is really, I kind of wrote this with the back end parent and bio parent and step parent in mind. Because if you do, and it could be this is a safe space for the kids to kind of process their feelings. It's actually written as a workbook. There's 12 different chapters, and each chapter has its own little activities to do and journaling prompts. So it may be private. Maybe the kids don't even want help. Maybe they are trying to journal their way through it. But one of the things that I love is it's a connection tool as well. So For instance, I had a family who the stepmom and the stepdaughter were really struggling to connect. And it was kind of some of that back end stuff that you were saying, like bio mom wasn't really caring for the stepmom and saying some things that this little girl felt this loyalty bond to mom, right? Like, so she felt guilty connecting to stepmom. She kind of had some questions around that. And stepmom was my coaching client. And so I really, from her perspective, thought about the angle that this book could take for her and her stepdaughter. And thankfully, she wrote me a couple weeks ago and just said, like, this has brought out such good communication between the two of them because it normalizes loyalty bonds and it gives the stepmom permission to say, like, hey, I get it. I'm not here to take her place. I'm here to, work with you. And what does that feel like? So really sitting and listening to the child's perspective. Like you said, we all have our own perceived realities. The kids do too. Mm-hmm. They just aren't really capable of the emotional tools to practice regulation and to understand, like, hey, it's okay to like both homes. I don't have to, it's okay to have loyalty bonds. It's okay to like my step parents, and where do I fit into this new family? So we address some of that, but on the back end, I think it's just the simplest form. It's a way to offer your kids help, no matter who's consenting, and even if you're not capable, maybe you're not even capable at this point. That's okay, right? That's why this is out there.
I still question parents that don't consent to have their children in therapy. It's almost like they're afraid the kid's going to say something against them.
Yeah.
And again, that just goes to show you this isn't about the kids to them.
Yeah.
This is the power struggle.
It is.
And the kids get stuck in that.
Yeah.
And it's too often that the kid comes back from one parent and the other parent's like, did you have a good time? They don't want to say yes.
Right.
Because they don't want to hurt that parent's feelings.
Exactly.
They don't want to say no. And then the parent go, oh, well, so-and-so said they didn't have fun at your house or didn't have a good time.
Exactly.
So it's like they're the middleman between
always
parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they should be.
No, and I think it's such a fine line. Like this, I know there's times that we had all good intentions of saying, like, hey, go have fun, or hey, we're going to miss you while you're gone, or whatever. But those actually can solicit guilt and shame for the kids, like you said. And so it's like, how do we do the best that we can with the resources we have, right? Like, and I think that's just a self-reflection. We have to really sit and think through, like, okay, if I put myself in their shoes, how do we do that? Well, what must they be feeling, And as, and we've talked about this before, but like, kids, no matter what the parents do, no matter how great of a parent they are, no matter dad could be in jail for murder. They're still going to love and choose that parent. There's still a loyalty bond there. And if we as step parents start to take that personal and consider, and don't consider the child's role or the child's perspective in that, you're right. They start to stuff some of those feelings, and then they feel caught in between, and that's no place to live. They don't feel at home in either home. They're kind of trapped in the middle, and we want to do everything we can to eliminate that for them.
I know when my son would go to his dad's, I would, if I talked to him, I'd be like, I miss you.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was anything bad.
Right.
But working with people, talking with people such as yourself and the guy that wrote Between Two Homes.
Yeah.
That can make your kid feel guilty because they can hang up and be like, oh, my mom's there all alone. She misses me. But you don't want to act like you don't miss them, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember one time I had taken my son to a counselor. One of the things that I was talking to her about was he doesn't want to go to his dad's. And she said, that's okay. And I said, well, I tell him you're going to have fun and blah, blah, blah. She said, stop making it sound like he's going to the circus because he's not.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good point.
And I said, so what do I do? She said, you tell him this is your dad's time. You're going with your dad. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't tell him you're going to have fun because he might have the worst time there. And then it's you lied to him.
Right.
And we don't even think about all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
About how it affects our kids. And it's funny, the grandbaby, she's 2.
Yeah.
2.5. And she was with us, and I had to take her to my sister-in-law's.
Okay.
For their kids to watch her one day so I could work. So I took her that morning and dropped her off. Well, that night when she came back with her dad, she wouldn't have anything to do with me. And I was like, are you mad? Yes. And I'm like, give me a hug. No, no. And then finally, after like an hour, I said, are you mad at me because I dropped you off at Angie's? She said, yes.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
she was normal. She's 2.5.
Wow.
And we think that these kids don't know what's going on.
Right.
But she was still mad at me because I dropped her off at Angie's. Now, she had a blast over there.
Of course.
But she didn't like that I dropped her off.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And she's so little to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you kind of had to name the feeling for her, right? Like she wasn't quite sure what it was. And so you were able to validate that in her. And then once that truth statement came out, and we get into this, I think I'm looking over here, it's chapter 2 in the book. We really break down feelings and emotions. And this is the first step to emotional regulation, which is actually the tool that I use in coaching both adults and children. So we break down like, hey, what am I feeling? And can I feel two things at one time? Can I miss mom and still love dad? And can I like it here? And does that mean I love it there less? So what are some of the feelings? And there's a big feelings chart in there, and a way for them to really think through like, hey, what is this that I'm feeling? Right? Because we want to get underneath the anger, underneath the anxiousness. And being able to sit with a child while they're doing this instead of like, I think I found myself, we've been in this blended situation for 15 years now. I say situation. It's like a situationship, right?
Like a prison.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
But
we've been in jail for
we've been in jail for a while. And I will tell you, just as like a caveat, like once the kids are adults and grown and gone, it doesn't get easier. It just gets different, right?
Changes, yeah.
And so I wish, and while I do think the stepmom role came a lot easier for me than the wife role did, oddly enough, I wish that I had some of these tools back then when the boys were going between the two homes, because I look like as I'm doing this work, I'm like, oh gosh, I should have done that a little better. But back to the feelings. So I think for children, being able to just name how they feel, and for the parent or step parent to sit with them and not try to explain it, like you were saying, not try to explain it out of them, not try to even put our feelings on them. But if they're excited to go to the other home, just, sitting with that with them, like, oh, I hear that you're really excited. That's awesome. Validating that back. And then the next step to that is kind of looking at, well, how are you coping with challenging emotions? Like, what does that look like? What are some of the things that you're doing to cope with this being difficult? There's different ways that we cope, and we want them to identify that early so we can name it in the times that they're emotionally dysregulated. Maybe they don't want to go, right? Let's flip that switch. So how do we handle that? Well, the book will work through like, okay, I see that you're feeling upset, or maybe they feel alone and they don't necessarily want to go where they have siblings here and no siblings there. I don't know.
Right.
But we want them to start to name their feelings.
Well, I don't want you to go either.
Right.
That doesn't help.
Right. Yeah. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And, some people would say that I probably handled this wrong, which is up for debate. But my son lived by a court order from the time he was born.
Sure.
So when he started that, when he was 2, and he's like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
The judge says you have to go.
Yeah.
So he's a 3 going, when can I talk to the judge? I don't want to go.
Sweet, go away.
I know. But his life was dictated by that. I didn't want him to think that I wanted him to go away, because the first Christmas he spent away from me, when he came back, he responded to me the same way the grandbaby did. He was angry. He was hurt. Yeah. He didn't understand and would have nothing to do with me for almost 24 hours. He would see me and go run to his room and shut the door. Yeah. And he was 2 also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one thing that I know is a friend of mine is a realtor, and she has this thing, and it's like, today I'm feeling, and you move the little thing around on the back.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember one day looking at it, and I'm like, kids need this.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that growing up. Everything categorized into I'm pissed off.
Right.
Whether I was hurt, angry, mad, sad, everything fell into I'm pissed off.
or we conform to whichever home we're in so that we can buffer their feelings, right? Like I feel like kids a lot of times regulate or co-regulate with their parent. So if I'm at mom's house and mom is upset at dad, I would never feel permission to say like, hey, I actually had a great weekend over there or whatever, so
Right.
like we find kiddos also assuming whichever emotions the parent that they're with are feeling, and that's not that creates codependency. We don't want to do that, right? But to your point, one of the chapters later on is about communication. So it really teaches kids how to say how they feel and what they need. And so we also dig into like what happens if your parents do put you in the middle. What happens if you if one parent is saying or asking something about the other parent, or maybe saying, hey, you know what, you need to ask your dad if you can come over here early, or you need to ask your mom if you can get dropped off early, and that child's being put in the middle. Well, this book actually helps the kiddos understand, hey, you know what, I feel put in the middle. And they don't even need to necessarily say that, but they could simply say, and this is one of the tools we teach them, like, hey, could you ask mom or dad about that for me?
Right.
And take themselves out. So like how to communicate when they feel in the middle, if they feel safe doing that. And if not, how to simply just say, hey, can you take that to the other home for me? I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Well,
just a simple statement.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times, like with my son, if he would tell me something, I would say, well, you're going to have to tell your dad that. Because if it came from me, it would be taken completely different. It would be, you're trying to get more time with him and, whatever. Whereas Jackson wanted to go to a birthday party.
Right.
Like, well, I can ask, but it's probably going to be better if you ask.
Sure. Yeah. Let's delineate like the lines between what is putting the kid in the middle and what is not, because stuff like that I think is fine, right? Like if it's happening on the other home's parenting time and the child is coming to you asking for permission, you did the right thing by leading them back to the other home, right? So if the party falls on dad's parenting time and he's coming to you saying, hey, mom, I really want to go to this party. Well, the right thing to do is teach him the tools on how to communicate well with dad. And guess what? Receive whatever answer dad says. Because like you said, you really held strict to the parenting time in your decree. So did we. And I'm with you. Like sometimes I look back and think, oh gosh, okay, while I do think it was necessary at certain times in our lives, could there have been some more flexibility? Maybe, right? But as I see the children as adults now, I think we could have, this is one of the communication tools that I wish I would have had with them. It's like, how could we have taught them younger how to have healthy, respectful communication with the other home based on what they need while they're in that home? Right. So it's not, so that's a line. So like if something's popping up in the other home, and the kiddos are really wanting to do it, but it's the other parent's time, sure, I think you absolutely should teach them tools like, hey, what would that sound like if you talk to dad? Like, let's role play that. Like that's actually a conversation you need to have with dad. That's his parenting time. And whatever his answer is, that's what it's going to be. Now, that is a very different situation than hey, I want to see you for longer than a week. And that's all that the parenting time is. Ask your dad or tell your dad you don't want to go over there this weekend. Right. Tell your dad this, So anything that's around, I think around visitation or parenting time, as they call it, right? Or communication, anything around that needs to go between the parents, the adults. Those are adult conversations. Changes in schedule. Anything finances goes between the parents.
My dad said you owe me $20.
Exactly. Those are two big no-nos, right? That puts the kid in the middle. Or how did you feel? Did mom say anything about me while you were over there? Or did dad say anything? Like, what did you guys do this weekend? Those types of conversations make the kid feel put in the middle, and it actually increases the loyalty bond. And not that we don't want to encourage that, but if your goal is to blend in a healthy way, right, pushing them out doesn't, that creates more chaos in the home. So,
and I think it's important to let the kids know that they can come talk to you about the step parent issues.
Sure.
I know Jackson had no qualms telling me everything that he found wrong with David and his kids, but even if it's just every night, just touch base with them.
Absolutely.
I don't care if they're 3 or they're 13.
Yeah.
Just, I want to see how things are going. How was your day?
Yeah.
How do you feel about things?
Yeah.
Don't guide them and just going, what do you think David's a butthole?
Right.
Or something like that. But
you
just want them to be able to share those feelings with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. This actually, if you do choose to purchase the workbook and do it with the kiddo, it gives you the perfect opportunity. And it could just be one activity, right? Like maybe you allow some of the activities in the week to be private, but you use the journaling prompt. And I actually created a parent resource that pairs up with the workbook that's a downloadable on my website. So it's I think it's like a 15-page prompt questions that you can use that prompt open-ended communication.
Right.
So it
Instead of
doesn't
yes,
really.
no
Right.
answers.
Yeah. And we don't want to, like you said, we don't want to project our feelings onto the kiddos. So it's just some
Right.
questions that are based on each chapter's topic that help you as a parent or step parent navigate having some open communication with the kiddos.
Yeah. And one of the worst things that I think a parent can do is tell a child, don't tell your mom or don't tell your dad that this is what happened at my house. What happens at my house stays at my house.
Absolutely.
It ain't Vegas, right?
Absolutely. And I actually coached a little boy that shared with me a secret that his mom wanted him to keep from his dad's house. And so we talked about, and it was actually mom getting remarried. And so to me, that's a surprise. That's not a secret, right? So we had this whole conversation about secrets keep you sick. We don't keep secrets between two homes, right?
Right.
But surprises are different. So surprises are something that, for instance, remarrying, a surprise is something that your mom needs to talk to your dad about. And maybe that's something that you can share. Like surprises can go between two homes on certain timing, but we definitely want to be careful with that. Secrets, that word tends to, it's actually a form of emotional abuse a lot of times when it comes to navigating, between two homes. So
I know one time we were at the beach and somehow or another we got on the motorcycle subject and the kids were young. Jackson might have been 5. And all of a sudden I was like, Jackson, you ever rode on a motorcycle? He just busted out crying. And I was like, what is wrong? My dad told me not to tell you. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah.
And I think it's important too that we teach the kids. I'm not going to say how to stand up to the other parent.
Yeah.
But how to create those boundaries.
Okay.
So for instance, if every time Jackson goes to his dad's, if his dad's complaining about me or saying I'm a piece of doo-doo, whatever, it's okay for your child to say, that hurts me.
Absolutely.
When you say those things, I wish you would stop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a proper way to do it rather than you quit telling blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chapter 10 in the book is setting boundaries. And we actually define the difference between physical, emotional boundaries. Because if you think about blending families, it is two families coming together, right? And there's space, new shared space. So what does that look like if maybe we've got step siblings sharing physical space? Well, how can we differentiate between what is my space and what is your space, right? And maybe they're used to, walking into the bathroom with mom getting ready, but now we've got stepdad in the home and that doesn't feel appropriate. So we talk about what is physical space? How do we set those boundaries? We need to clearly define them, right? Now that we've got a new family, sometimes what was normal before isn't going to be acceptable now.
Right. And the kids will look at that as the step parent caused it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we want to just define that, right? But then also setting verbal boundaries and emotional boundaries. So just like you said, we talk about that in the book. Like what happens if you're placed in the middle or if you're told to keep a secret? How do you, or maybe there's something that has hurt you, in either home. How do you say, hey, this is how I feel. This is what I expected in the future, and just kind of leave it at that, like, hey, you know what, that made me feel uncomfortable. I would prefer if you take that to mom yourself. Or, hey, that made me feel uncomfortable when you walked in the bedroom and I had the door shut. Next time, can you knock? Or, hey, that made me feel, it makes me feel uncomfortable when I sleep in the same bed with my step parent or my, my step sibling or whatever. Maybe can I make a pallet on the floor? So having some communication around those healthy boundaries is so, that's just not anything that we addressed as a blended family. It was nothing I really thought of, but it came to me in the form of a client that was having some issues, walked in on stepmom taking a shower, and that didn't go over real well, right? But I asked, like, have we set boundaries or have we just assumed that the kiddos, know what they are? How would they know?
Right. They're used to something completely different.
100%.
Yeah. And I can see it now. If the child is used to going in the bathroom in the morning, getting ready with mom, and all of a sudden they can't, then it's
Right.
stepdad won't let me.
Right.
And so it's important that they see these changes not as a result of this person being there, but just
Right.
dynamic shifting.
Yeah. And validating the feelings like, oh, we don't want to name it for them, but recognizing like there could be some jealousy in there. There could be some, maybe they're uncomfortable now. Maybe they're angry, right? And helping them name that based on the situation. And all of that tends to pop up anywhere in these 12 chapters of the book. It just really opens the lines for that communication and stuff. Like you said in the very beginning, you're so overwhelmed yourself, maybe you're just divorcing and in a new relationship, or maybe you've been in a relationship and the blend is just not working like you thought it would. Even in that, like these are all experiences the kids they're going through, and we just don't even consider it a lot of times. And that's no fault to you. You're trying to figure it out too.
Right.
So this just kind of looks at it from their perspective and helps you be a better parent or step parent too,
Well, let me ask you this. I don't know if this is covered in your book, but do you talk about when their step siblings are treated differently?
I'm trying to think. We do there's a chapter on family roles and kind of just understanding what a blended family is. So we start at the basics, because if you think these are kiddos, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 12, I would say, walking into a blended family, there's so many dynamics. There's half siblings, there's step siblings, there's step cousins, so we just start from a basic foundation of understanding what a blended family is, helping them then map out their own. So they get to draw their own little family tree and link it to who are all these new people in my life. But further into the book, we really dig into family roles and how to build new bonds within a blended family. And there's some activities like, hey, why don't you go around and ask where your stepmom was born, where your step siblings were born, just starting at that basic level of building a relationship so that you can bond it's kind of like with the saying, we want to connect before we correct. Yeah. So that chapter is all about connecting with step siblings and understanding too, like, hey, you may not get along with everybody. That's okay. Right? Like we may not either, but, later on, we have some handling conflicts. That's a chapter in there. And then how to handle it when co-parents don't agree. Like how do we handle if mom and dad don't agree? Like, what does that look like? Or
you go with the one you want.
Right. Well, and that's another chapter is like, what happens when both homes have different sets of rules? And I help the kids kind of on this worksheet map out like, what is bedtime? What is screen time? What is curfew? What is, at mom's house and at dad's house, or whichever.
Would it be great if they were the same?
It would be very helpful, but a lot of times it's not. And so this helps in the conversations and coaching that I have with the kiddos is like, hey, how can we build balance into both homes? Right. So you may be allowed at mom's house to eat all the junk and have all the videotape, or vice versa. I don't know. How do we find balance in that? Because it's really what's best for you, and what feels best. And a lot of times the kids are honest. They really want the boundaries. They really want the discipline. And so they kind of split it in the middle. They're like, well, at mom's house, I can do 5 hours. At dad's, I can do 3. Maybe if I just do 4. And I'm like, I love it. Right. Like make that work in both homes and understand you're going to have to follow whichever set of rules are present. But how can you also use those communication skills or the boundary skills and work back into what's best for you and your heart.
Right. So, yeah. And you got a little stuffy, don't you?
Well, all right.
All right.
This has not been announced yet.
Oh.
No, this is great. It's about to come out. So this is fabulous. All right. So as I was creating this workbook, I thought to myself, like, okay, so this kind of hits the preteen market, right? And then there's just not a lot for little bitties that are going between 2 homes. Let's talk about Jackson at 2, and let's talk about your granddaughter at 2, right? Like 2 homes, and they're I just didn't find a lot of resources for that age group. So I thought to myself, all right, well, how do I take the concepts of the workbook that's built for a little bit of an older audience and break it down for the little bitties? And so I wrote, I actually have a copy right here. I'm going to show it. Mally's Two Homes and a Deer Named Darla.
Oh,
And with this book comes a stuffed deer that the little children can take between two homes. And this is a story about Mally and her stuffed deer. And one of the main themes is, in one of the pages, she says, she's just confused about, can I like it here at Dad's and still love Mom's too?
right. Yeah.
And this just is a story about how love grows. It doesn't take away.
Mhm.
And it really brings to life Mally as a character. She's got two homes. She's got a stepmom and dad and a stepbrother in one home. And then her other home is mom and stepdad. But this
Mhm.
story is really focused on that. Like, can I love it here and like Mom's too?
Right.
And that is coming out on Step Family Day. So September 16th, we
Okay.
will launch that and it will be out in the world, the Steffi and the book together. I don't have Darla. She's tucked away. We actually just relocated. So she's
Oh, that's right. I
she's
wanted
in
to
a
see
box still.
Darla.
I know she's so, so cute. But the
She
book and the
is.
set together will be on my website. And we're launching that. So if anybody wants to be on the launch team that's listening as well, we can link contact information in the show notes, I'm sure.
Okay. And what's your website so they can do that?
It is www.blendedbookco.com.
Okay.
And the workbook's on there. This new children's book with the Steffi will be on there. I would say towards the end of August, beginning of September, for pre-orders. And yeah, that's what
I
I
love
got
that.
coming out. You're the first one to know. Actually, I haven't even announced it
Woohoo!
yet. Yay!
Well, it reminds me of the Kohl's. When you go to Kohl's, there's the
Yes, you're
books and the
my
stuffing.
sisters have said that too, that they're hell bent on getting it into Kohl's. So if Kohl's is listening, right, this isn't sponsored by them, but perhaps it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it is
spent enough money
exactly
there. It
that
should
concept.
be.
I know, right?
Yeah. But that's a great idea. And we didn't think until we went through this
I know.
about what those kids go through.
I know.
And especially kids that have like the 2-2-3-3
Oh
schedule.
my gosh, Lori, so bad.
In my opinion, that is not good for the
I
children.
agree.
They never feel like they're at home. They're
I
living
agree.
out of a bag. We
Yeah.
did that. The kids flocked so much, but they never really unpacked. So it
Yeah.
was like living in a hotel almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
not having
actually,
the two homes is like they had to bounce them back and forth.
I know. And just having to even if like I had a kiddo that I coached and that was his schedule and it was causing him so much stress and anxiety. And so we just talked through like, hey, what would it sound like if you talked to your parents about how this feels for you?
Mhm.
And he was brave and he did, and he went to both homes. And I'm going to tell you, both those parents came to a mediation table and changed that schedule for him. And I
Wow.
was so proud of them because that doesn't happen.
No.
They co-parent keeping the kids first, but this has been a conflictual co-parenting relationship. So the fact that they were able to hear him, right? First of all, the fact that he was brave and brought me
Right.
that, and then we worked through how to communicate how this is making you feel. Like all I'm doing in this book and in my coaching and with the adults and in this little Mally's book is I'm teaching people how to tell the truth. Just
Right.
tell the truth. Tell the truth about how you feel, right?
Right.
So do it in a respectful way. So tell the truth. Tell your
Right.
parents how you feel. Hey, this is causing me anxiousness and stress. And it's exactly like you said, he never felt at home in either home.
Right.
And so they were able to come to the table and they, for the time being, changed it to week on, week off. And he even was like, I want to switch on Sunday evening. Like he kind of mapped it
Oh,
out. And they
wow.
have like one day that's a free day that the kiddos can say, I miss mom or dad. Like, could I go do that? And that's like an open free day through the week. I think they do it on Wednesday or something. And the parents, it's a beautiful success story. It doesn't always
Wow.
happen, but I agree with you. It's like, how can we help them the best that we can be affected less as possible from
Mhm.
a situation they didn't choose to be in?
Right.
And that's the bottom line. Like they're the ones that suffer from the chaos and the brokenness of divorce, unfortunately.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
sure you've seen it recently. It's popping up in my feed everywhere about the parents that they split up, but the kids don't change houses. The parents.
Yeah. What is it called? I have seen it, and I actually have a friend that does it, and I can't remember. It's called
Really?
something. Yeah. It's like
Okay. Well, I need your friend on my podcast.
okay, I'll send you her name and number. Yeah, they do it. They actually are here in our new town, and I didn't even know they lived here. It was somebody that I've done life with in the past through Blended, and I noticed she's on the new neighborhood website, and I'm like, what? This is so crazy. But they do that. So mom and dad flip flop out, and the kids stay put, which I don't know if I could do that. It feels so selfless to me that they do that. And
Right.
it's like for the kids best. So yeah, I'll definitely pass that on.
Yeah, because I've got questions.
I know, right? Right. Like, where are you sleeping?
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
I'm not sleeping to bed that my ex was in. There ain't no telling what kind of funk he's got.
I'm guessing they've got two rooms, but I haven't explored it. I haven't unpacked it either with her.
Yeah, but then who gets the master bedroom? I mean,
know, right?
It would have to be the perfect scenario would be there's a basement with a master bedroom, and then there's a top floor with a master bedroom.
100%.
Right? And so the other one doesn't go up or below, right?
Yeah.
So it was like the middle floor is everybody's.
Yeah.
The bottom floor is mine. The top floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, we in Texas, so ain't no basements here. I don't know what they do. I don't know.
5-story houses.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah, but it would, and I'm thinking it would have to be an apartment because when are you going to do grass? Cut your grass at your house.
Right.
And
yeah.
There's so much logistically, but there's also that living apart together.
Yeah.
Where, say you and Andy.
Yeah.
Things were rough and you said, well, I can't take it anymore. We're just going to live separately.
Yeah.
Well, that's great for removing the blended stress, but you're adding financial stress.
Absolutely.
You're adding other stress from, well, I can't come over there tonight. I've got to do this. Or just, it adds so much, but it doesn't help with the marriage bond.
No. And the only way and now I approach this, in coaching a lot. And the only way I would promote that is if we are working for reconciliation, right? So we are separating with the intent to reconcile. And that would be the only time that I would recommend that. And that's if there's safety involved in the home.
Right.
And what with the intent to reconcile means is like, hey, you're both actively seeking individual counseling. And once you've gotten to a certain point in that, then you're getting couples coaching or counseling.
Right.
And there has to be a clear-cut plan in that. So anytime that's kind of where I am leaning towards, hey, if this is going to work, you guys really need some space and time apart to work through your own personal issues. I tend to refer that out because I just I'm not the best person to walk somebody through a separation with the intent to reconcile.
Right.
I'm just not, but I could offer the individual coaching or counseling on the side. But I agree with you. That adds more, and think about what that does to the kid. I mean, that's just so confusing too, like for the kiddos,
Well, especially if you each have kids, they never build those step-sibling relationships.
Right. Yeah.
There's so much to it. And I understand that it works for a lot of people. They feel stressed and all that, but okay, after the kids move out, you move back in together. Well, then
you don't even know each other at that point, I wouldn't think, right?
And then they're coming with grandkids.
Yeah.
Well, this grandkid doesn't like that grandkid, so I have to move out.
Right.
It's just,
Right.
And I have always been of the mentality, if I leave, I'm not coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I don't think that's, we got to a place where we needed some marriage work. We did. And space looked like maybe different bedrooms at times, where we could cool down, calm down. My therapist tells me, take your little girl self to the bathroom until you calm down. Right. So we notice like, hey, this is my little girl self showing up, not necessarily my adult self. And I need to take a step back and calm down. And I know, right. It really does help me. And then you just take the steps to regulate. But, I lost my train of thought, but I'm sure you see a ton of different dynamics, right? When it comes to blending. And then when it gets hard, how to navigate that as well. But you're right, we're never going to build the bonds we need to if we continue to isolate and do things alone. We really have
Right.
got to do hard things together. And that doesn't mean if it's not safe, we
Right.
stay. That's not what we mean. But
Right.
if it's hard, and I think a lot of times, I'm sure you find this too, we see people moving in together before the commitment of marriage, and then it's like, okay, now we're stuck, and we need to navigate that differently. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we play house and it's not really house yet.
Right.
And that causes complications too, especially if there's kids.
Yes.
It makes things way more complex.
Yeah, it does. And I know too, when you're together and you're not married, you have a false sense of security.
Hmm.
Just my opinion again.
Yeah.
And you don't have, see, how am I trying to say this? You're more apt to work on your relationship if you're married.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to break up,
Yeah.
as it is to get divorced.
Yeah.
And, I grew up where my parents should have gotten divorced like a day after they got married. They were miserable.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time, but I do not promote divorce.
Right.
Now I'm not saying abuse or anything
Right.
like that.
No, I know what you mean.
I'm just saying, life sucked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was life can suck together or life can suck apart. What do we want to do?
Right. Yeah. And when you mingle finances and living together, it makes bad relationships harder to get out of.
Right.
Which I think, like you said, I don't promote divorce either, but if you're cohabitating and you're finding this is really hard and this isn't working, seeking help from somebody that is step family aware and that understands the blended family dynamics, that can either help you. And this, I tell the boys this about coaching, like a good coach either maintain, like, I think it is kingdom work, which I'm a believer. So I think it is kingdom work to disintegrate relationships that shouldn't be, right, that aren't necessarily into the marriage yet. So premarital counseling doesn't necessarily mean we're leading towards marriage. It could be this isn't what's right. So you need to be honest, right, in that. Or so I think kingdom work is not encouraging relationships to move forward if they shouldn't, or helping relationships that are together stay together. I think it's both.
Right.
I really
so you're
do.
not saying that. So say David and I were dating for 5 years, things weren't going well. And you're not saying that just because we're not married, we shouldn't go to counseling.
I'm saying if things aren't going well and there's some real foundational issues,
Mhm.
and you're not married and you're moving towards marriage, I would challenge you guys to consider, is this relationship meant to be? Are you capable of handling the complexities that come with step family life? And maybe you're already cohabitating. So let's
Right.
unpack some of that. What have you mingled together that you are believing you cannot get out of? Finances, the home, okay.
Mhm.
Do we stay together and be unhealthy, especially for these children, if we're already facing challenges that we cannot untangle on our own? So that's what I'm
Right.
saying. I think, like, for example, I had a couple, they were living together. They had just moved in together. She had a son. He didn't have kids and had never been married. But they were having a lot of really foundational challenges. There was some trust issues. There was some just,
Not a good match.
not in my opinion, but that's not my responsibility as a coach.
Right.
My responsibility is to ask the challenging questions for self-consideration so that they come to that conclusion on their own, right?
Right.
So we kind of just did the work, and he was all in, and she kind of realized, like, this maybe isn't where I need to be headed. And she was the one with the child, right? So she needed to understand, like, from a safety standpoint, is this somebody that you're really wanting to get tangled with and be in a long-term marital commitment? And the answer towards the end of coaching was no. And I helped facilitate a breakup. It was super
Oh,
uncomfortable, but we did it. And she ended up coming to one of my boot camps as a single mom about 6 months later, just to get some tools for the next time around. So she knew, like, hey, going into this, these are the complexities. These are the things that I need to look for. And I followed up with her recently, and she stuck with it, and I was proud of her. I thought for sure maybe she would go back. But that's what I'm talking about. If we're now that was some of the complex issues. They had lived together. They had merged finances, right? So we had to ask some questions around, like, hey, is it worth backing out of some of that? And what does that look like? Are you going to have to suffer the consequences to some of that? Probably, but is that better in the short term than getting into this long-term relationship that potentially may end in another divorce? And then you've got this kiddo that is just stuck in between, stuck in the middle,
Yeah.
So
I see it every day in the Facebook group, especially, not just mine, but other Facebook groups.
Sure.
Where it's a stepmom and they're a stay-at-home stepmom.
Mm-hmm.
And
been there, done that.
Yep. And I'm stuck.
Okay.
I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this blended family anymore, but I can't get out.
Okay.
If you want out bad enough, there's a way.
Sure.
I don't care if it's going to live with your grandma 400 miles away, if it's with a friend, couch surfing. I mean, you find ways, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's important to keep your self strength. I don't know the other word I'm looking for, but
no, I know what you mean.
Independence to a degree.
Absolutely.
Because if
I think
you lose who you are.
Well, and this was my challenge, and how I could personally relate to that. When our heart position for doing why we're like being a stay-at-home stepmom is a selfless position, and a lot of times the recognition and the expectations we have around being like I will just use I statements. Early on, I thought, okay, I am doing this for your kids. That didn't mean two things were true at the same time. I enjoyed doing it, and I was so thankful to have we had the finances that I could stay at home, right? So I was so thankful for that, and I expected recognition for the work I was doing. And when I didn't get that, I started to build this resentment, and the resentment flipped my heart from service, right, to selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of my personal and then our marital issues came in, because I expected Andy to heal some parts of me that he's not capable. He's human too, right?
He didn't break them.
He didn't. Yeah, exactly. And then I start feeling stuck. Well, what does that mean? Well, okay, I could have gone down the road of I'm financially stuck, right? I left my career to stay home with the stepkids. I had a long-term career I was super successful. I loved my job, but I found this to be more valuable, and so I chose them.
Right.
So now I'm financially stuck, and what happens when you feel stuck, is that you start to turn inward and feel sad for yourself. And my encouragement is, if you feel stuck, serve, right? So if you're starting to feel stuck, you want to serve. What does that mean? Well, like you said, I lost myself in the service of others, and that's not healthy either. So it's really this identity struggle that we have as step parents. In my belief, we walk through this identity crisis, honestly, as part of a step family. First of all, it's not how we ever thought our lives would end up,
Right.
So we're walking into this role and really not knowing what we're doing. And then there's all these external conflicts and chaos and complexities that add to our role, just the role, just the word stepmom.
Right.
And we tend to lose ourselves in that. It's super easy. We drown. And so how do we have our own self-identity, I think is where, kind of what you were saying is like, how do we maintain this self-identity, this true identity instead of false? So like our false identity tells us lies about who we are. Our true identity is, in my belief, that's who Christ has called me to be, right? Which is a shepherd over this flock. And so it's just a heart change. And if you start to find yourself resenting or wanting out, you use the nacho method. You take some boundaries, you have some
Right.
space, you step back, you step out, right? So
Right.
I had to step back from a lot of the step parent role that I put myself in I didn't have permission to take. I just took it
Yeah.
because I was a full-time stay-at-home step parent,
Right.
right? So I easily fell into that. And when I started having resentment, my heart wasn't in the right place. I used the nacho method and I took a step back, and then from that distance, I could see, gosh, I've lost myself.
Yes.
Right. So how do I find that? That's where I start the work instead of escaping, which is a coping mechanism. So
Right.
we don't want to escape, right? That's not
Right.
you can escape this relationship, but I promise your pain's going to show up with you in the next.
Oh, yes. 100%.
So
Yeah.
it's to your point. Like, do we want to say, if this is hard, get out? Absolutely not. Because if you get out, what you will follow yourself to the next relationship.
Right. Right. You
It's
didn't
not the
even put a
point.
Band-Aid on it. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I really resonate with that. Like self-identity, I needed to figure out what was false about what I was feeling, and then that my true identity, right, which is that
Mhm.
I'm called to be in this role. And then how do I nurture the truth? How do I tell the truth about who I am to myself and to
Right.
others?
Right.
That's that setting boundaries. Like, hey, you know what, babe, I love you, and I love the boys, and this is a situation you need to handle.
Hmm.
And it's
Right.
the same thing I do in the workbook with the kids, just on a lower level. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what, mom or dad, I love you, and this is something you need to talk to the other home about.
Right.
Taking myself out of the middle. It's
Yes.
teaching kids to do what a lot of parents won't do for them, which
Right.
is so sad.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And, to certain parents, it's not intentional.
No,
We know
absolutely
that.
not. I agree. I agree.
A lot of times we think that we are doing best what's for the kid
Absolutely.
because we don't know any better. Right? When you know
Absolutely.
better, you do better. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we are all products of our environment. We're all products of how we were raised and we do the best we can with the resources we have. And I agree. Like, there are parents that show up doing the best they can. And this isn't to feel shame or guilt or, feel bad. This is just a tool to have in your own belt to offer kids, so that they can grow up having a little bit more insight and knowledge maybe than we did, right? Like, that's what we always want for our kids, is a
Yeah.
little bit more than and do better than we did, have a little bit more resources. So if we can teach them how to emotionally regulate at a younger age and have the tools to have good communication, have good conflict management, understand, like, hey, you know what, it's okay to love both homes, and here's how to handle it if they don't disagree. First of all, disagreements are normal.
Right.
Like, even in a healthy marriage, you're going to have disagreements, so
Mhm.
that's okay. We want to normalize some of that for them, and it's not your job to manage other people's emotions. I
Right.
speak that over them so much in this book. Hey, it's actually not your job to manage other people's emotions. It's not your responsibility.
Yep.
Let's take that backpack off. You know what, mom is allowed to have her feelings and dad's allowed to have his feelings, and you're allowed to have yours, and yours are the only ones that you are responsible for.
When you started talking about your book
Mhm.
and the Between Two Homes and how it can help and all that, I was thinking I could have used that book when I was 30 and my
Right,
parents got divorced
right.
because my mom wanted me to be her friend. She
Mm,
wanted to complain about my dad. I'm a
okay.
daddy's girl. That was the worst idea in the world. Why would you do that?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
And so at one point, I got to the point that I would not really talk to her as much because of that. Every time I was bashing my dad.
right.
And then finally one day I said, look, I love you, but I'm not your friend. I'm your daughter.
Yeah,
And that is
yeah,
my dad.
yeah. How did she respond?
Not well.
Yeah,
It was, I need somebody to talk to. Well, find somebody. This isn't the
absolutely.
person.
Yeah, yeah,
And the same thing with my dad. He didn't really say as much negative about my mom or try to drag me in the middle. But when he would make a comment, sometimes I'll be like, Daddy. He'll go, I
yeah,
know that's ugly.
yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because she was the religious one.
Ugh,
Yep. But he exhibited more Christ-like behavior
sure.
at times than she did because she was so hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as soon as you said that, I actually just scheduled out some of my social media posts, and one of them was at 32 years old, you will still feel loyalty bonds.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it doesn't end when you're 18, and um yeah, I mean it's so true. I think through like my dad's in a relationship and they've been together a while, and I sometimes forget that her role is much like mine was. And so it's like even as a 47-year-old, I still have loyalty bonds to my mom and dad, and it doesn't matter. Now, I love that you were able to say to your mom finally, like, hey, you know what? I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. I don't like that. Because I think a lot of people choose to have no communication over difficult communication.
Right.
And so
Right.
if we can teach kids young how to say, like, hey, you know what? I actually just don't like that. And then
Mm-hmm.
turn and walk away.
Yeah.
Their response is not your responsibility.
Yep.
What is your responsibility is setting that boundary and having respectful communication. Like you said, hey mom, I'm not your friend. Like
Right.
this, that
I'm
actually
not
hurts
your
me.
friend.
Yeah, there you go. Another play on it.
Yeah.
But it's so true. It doesn't end at 18.
No.
And one of the things that I think it just helped put some things in perspective for me is the amount of time we spend in relationship with our children, is actually greater. The amount that we spend more time with them outside of our home after the first 18 years of their life than we do with them inside of our home. If you just think about the lifespan of an adult child relationship, right?
Right.
If you're living to your 70s and they're living to their 40, or you're up there.
Right.
The number of years we have with them as adults far outweighs the number of years we have with them as children.
Mm-hmm.
And if what you're doing in fostering a healthy relationship with them as children is considering, hey, I am working for the long-term relationship with my child,
Mm-hmm.
not short-term emotional dump. I don't want to have a short-term emotional dump on them, like and have a conversation about how, terrible their dad was or how terrible their mom was, because that actually damages the long-term relationship. And so if your goal is to have a healthy long-term relationship, you want to make wise choices in the moment, even in the moments that you're emotionally dysregulated during the age that they're in your home, because that is going to set you up for the adult relationships that you'll have with your children.
Right.
Or it won't, right? Like,
Right.
because they could finally say, much like you did, like, hey, I don't love that. And if you choose not to hear and stop, they have the choice to never come back home.
Right.
It's not between two homes, it's their home. They choose.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're looking for the long-term relationship, it's important what we do now to build these bonds with the kids and help all the way back to the beginning. Like you said, help look at things through their eyes,
Right.
their perceived reality. And maybe you can't, but just to acknowledge that it's probably very different than
Right.
what you know. Very
Yeah.
different.
Because, as a stepmom, I'm thinking, oh, great, David's going to go meet the ex to drop off the PlayStation 5. Like, they can't go a week without the PlayStation 5.
Right.
But as a child, once I step back and I can view it, it's like, as a child, that's important to you.
Sure.
That's a part of your day, right? Playing your PS5 or whatever it is.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's not there.
Right.
So,
And it's a streamline. Like you think it's like a through line as well, right? So if they've got broken home, they've got two homes, they're navigating a life between two homes, and that's a through line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't we want to offer that through line? That's kind of what Darla does at the Stuffy of this book.
Right.
Like, it just offers a through line. Like, hey, you know what? This is a connection to both homes. And it's like that little boy that I help coach. Like, it really just, this feels more comfortable. This is the through, this is something that I can carry between two homes.
Right.
So, I mean, I get, but I'm with you, girl. I'd be the first one to be like, no, we're not doing that. They can wait, like, because I react versus looking at it from their perspective.
Right. Whereas now you'll be like, I'll just ship them a PS5 to them.
I know. Now that they're gone, to all you young mamas out there, I promise these days go by so fast, and you look back and you wish you had laundry to do and dishes and hearing the kids,
Okay, now I don't wish for the dishes or the laundry, but I do like it when
Really?
everybody comes and hangs out. Girl, I hate dishes and laundry.
That's so funny.
But I love it when they all come and hang out.
I do too.
And it's funny because the triplets are 25
Oh,
and
gosh.
Avery will be 27 this year. And I'm like, they are parents.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
this
crazy.
is fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I remember one of David's kids had made a comment it was about boundaries, even though he didn't say the word boundaries. He said, if I told you not to dress my son in red, and I came to pick him up and he was dressed in red, you'd never see him again. I'm like, that's a bit drastic. He goes, well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I said, I know what you're saying. And I said, but you're also going to realize that things will change. Because I remember my son had done something out of daycare and I was thinking, I'm going to yank him out of there because that's not a good place for him. But that wasn't the ideal, right? It was, I couldn't do that. It wasn't I could really do that right that second. And I said, sometimes you've got to change the way you look at things. And I said, but I get it. But it's so funny because I never thought I'd hear him say anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as parents, they are doing the parental role very well.
Yeah. And they look back, and I think one of the things that I had to continuously check my heart on in our situation was like, oh, well, they'll look back and they'll see, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, I should want them to look back and not have a whole lot to see outside of us working together to be good co-parents.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I don't know that, I think we did the best we could with the resources we had. I agree. And I think we did what we felt was right a lot of the times. And there's also things that I look back and I'm like, gosh, we could have done that better.
Right.
And I want to give the kids permission now, much like you did. You obviously are a safe place for him to say that, or he wouldn't have, right? But I want to, and like you said, I could use this book at 35. Well, I think a lot of people could use this book to go back and repair damage and or maybe just lack of education or communication that you've had with your kids, like, oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about like the fact that they had two different roles. And so maybe the conversation now is like, how did that affect you back then? And just sit and listen, just actively listen to them and let them get it off their chest, because that connection helps build the long-term relationship that maybe needs repair or just maybe needs, a new foundation because they're in a different season of life.
Right.
But,
yeah. Well, I am so excited.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on here. The timing was perfect because the workbook's been out a little bit. And then with the announcement of the new book, when you reached out, I was just like, obviously it's a yes always. Because I love you and David.
I was wondering why we didn't have you on sooner.
And I don't know, but I think this is perfect timing. I think it's God's timing and everything kind of plays out perfectly. And, I love you guys. So.
Yep. And we love you too.
Well, it's good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. We'll have you back soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And remember that life is good.
And it really is when you nacho.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.